Heisman Memorial Trophy.
Bryce Young.
Here's the first sack of the ball game. Will Anderson. Alabama is still Alabama.
The lights of Tuscaloosa. What a finish we're in store for.
Game ops has never been a bigger deal in college football and in sports than right now. If you're looking to visit this stadium. They got it figured out here.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's electric. Here comes the Tide.
Kenzie, that's what we'll get to see inside Bryant-Denny this Saturday night, and I'm ready. It is game week, and we're back in the studio for our third episode of Tide TV this week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by my co-host, Kenzie Hughes. Roll Tide, Kenzie.
Roll Tide, Roger, and roll football season. There are very few things in this world that get me as excited as those lights in Bryant-Denny. Can't wait to see them on Saturday.
Absolutely. After 4 weeks of fall camp, it is officially game week. Tide continued practicing this week, but it feels a little different as the Tide is preparing for its season opener this weekend.
Can't agree more, Roger. I'm excited for the season to finally begin as the Tide is set to kick the season off this Saturday night inside Bryant-Denny Stadium against Utah State. Let's hear from Coach Saban as the Crimson Tide gets ready for their season opener.
A lot of anticipation, a lot of energy and enthusiasm to, play the first game, and I think the focus for us needs to be on playing the best, setting a standard for, how we want to play, how we want to do things, how we want to finish plays, how we want to execute. What is the identity of this team, going to be? I think there's lessons learned from a year ago when we didn't prepare right, we didn't practice the way, I think we need to practice to prepare. We didn't always play really well. So to be a more consistent team in terms of our ability to prepare and execute, I think is going to be critical for, how we play not only in the opener, but how we progress throughout the season.
And as we get ready for Saturday's season opener, there are some new changes and improvements to the game day experience inside Bryant-Denny Stadium.
We want to highlight a few of those for you so you'll be ready for game day on Saturday.
Beginning this year, all points of sale at Alabama athletic events for concessions and retail will be cashless. Guests with cash will have the ability to exchange for a fan card in $20 increments in 2 locations at Bryant-Denny. The first at lower level section AA and upper level at section NN-8.
Beer and wine will be available for purchase at many concession stands and portable stations around the stadium. Guests must be 21 to purchase and show valid proof of identification. IDs will be checked at each time of purchase, and there is a limit of 2 alcohol beverages per transaction. Sales of beer and wine will conclude at the completion of the third quarter.
And with the sale of alcoholic beverages, 150 large containers for aluminum can recycling can be placed throughout Bryant-Denny Stadium. Fans consuming beer are asked to please utilize these bins for the disposal of cans as opposed to leaving at seats or throwing in trash cans.
In addition to the concession stands, the Crimson Crave trailer is set up along the Walk of Champions as a pre-entry dining option. ASAP will also be available for mobile ordering and select portables throughout section 100, 200, and 800 level concourses. QR codes with a link to order and pick up concession items from your smartphone can be found throughout the stadium.
And don't forget to download your tickets before you arrive to Bryant-Denny Stadium so you don't have any issues entering the stadium. There are 10 security checkpoints set up around the stadium, so give yourself plenty of time to get in before kickoff.
Reserved parking lots on campus open at 7 a.m. on game days. Additional parking can be found downtown and at several other off-campus locations. Also, the Crimson Ride shuttle service is free. That drops off fans near the stadium at the quad. You can find the latest on parking, gate number changes, and the rest of the new changes for 2022 at rolltide.com/new in 2022.
All right, Roger, we've taken a look at a couple of fall camp speakers the past 2 shows in Michael Phelps and Larry Fitzgerald, but this week we take a sneak peek at the first episode of Season 4 of Bama Cuts.
This premiere episode is with Olympic gold medalist Michael Phelps. Here's a sneak peek. You can watch the entire episode on Alabama football's social media accounts, including the University of Alabama Athletics YouTube page.
What's your definition of fun? Like, what you like doing? What do you do for fun? Swim? He swims?
Honestly, with 3 boys under 7, like, there's not much time to do much.
They're all over the place, nonstop, all the time. So, what do y'all do for fun away from here?
Netflix. I promise, Netflix is the go-to for me. Get some food, something to snack on. Turn the AC to 65. 65. Put a blanket on and I'm chilling. That's fun for me.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
The lights of Tuscaloosa. What a finish we're in store for.
If you're looking to visit this stadium. They got it figured out here.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's electric. Here comes the Tide.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. It's here, Kinsey. Game week for the Crimson Tide football team.
You're right, Roger. It's finally here, and Alabama opens the season this Saturday night inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. For a preview of this week's matchup, our ever so handsome and talented Christopher England joins us now.
For the first time since 2011, Alabama opens the season at home inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. When the #1 ranked Crimson Tide take the field against Utah State on Saturday night, it will be just the third ever meeting between the two schools. Alabama's won both matchups against the Aggies, with the last back in 2005, a 35-3 victory. 2005 was the last time Utah State played against Alabama, but it's not the last time head coach Blake Anderson faced the Crimson Tide. Anderson led Arkansas State against Alabama in 2018, a game the Crimson Tide won 57-7. Anderson is in his second season as head coach at Utah State. Before becoming the Aggies head coach, Anderson spent the previous 6 seasons as head coach at Arkansas State.
Blake Anderson has done a really good job there. This team can play, really in any conference and do well. They ended up a top 25 team a year ago. They won 11 games, beat a couple Pac-12 teams.
Last season, Utah State had one of the best seasons in program history. The Aggies finished 11-3, won the Mountain West Championship, and finished the season with a 24-13 victory over Oregon State in the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. The Aggies opened the 2022 season last Saturday with a come-from-behind 31-20 victory over Connecticut. After falling behind 14-0 in the first quarter, the Aggies outscored the Huskies 31-6 to close out the game.
They're a fast team. They like to do tempo a little bit. They have a really great offensive line. They're big up front. Their running back is a shifty guy. He likes to hit the ball downhill. So, it's going to be a great challenge for us. We're ready. We've been practicing, preparing for them. But, I think they're a great team, and it's going to be a good challenge for us.
Utah State finished with 542 yards of offense, led by quarterback Logan Bonner. Bonner had a very efficient performance, finishing 20 of 29 for 281 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Bonner has faced the Crimson Tide before, as he was the quarterback for Arkansas State back in that 2018 matchup. Calvin Tyler Jr. led the Aggies in rushing, averaging almost 5 yards per carry with 162 yards on 33 attempts. Their most efficient runner was Robert Briggs. Briggs gained 85 yards on just 10 carries with a touchdown and was named the Mountain West Freshman of the Week. Logan Bonner's favorite target was graduate senior Brian Cobbs. Cobbs had a team-leading 8 receptions for 108 yards with an 11-yard touchdown reception from Bonner late in the fourth quarter. The Utah State defense held UConn to 364 total yards while forcing 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a fumble.
They do a really good job of stunning and pressuring. That's been kind of their forte. They were one of the leading teams in the country last year in tackles for loss and creating negative plays. So you got to be patient. And I think when you get a hat on the hat, you've got a really good chance to make plays against them, but that's always the challenge. And they've got good players. They play hard. They're physical. They're tough. I think our guys are, anxious and ready to go and, see how we go out and execute against, what we think is a pretty good defensive team.
For us, obviously, everyone loves big plays, explosive plays. But for us, however we can get points on the board is what we want to do. So when those big explosive plays are there, we want to do our best to make sure we take advantage of that. And, if we have to If it has to be a 3-4 yard run game, whatever it may be, short passes, whatever we need for us, it's just about taking what the defense gives us.
On special teams, Connor Coles nailed his only field goal of the game, a 45-yard kick as the first half ended. And punter Steven Kotzenlee had a fantastic performance, averaging 48.2 yards per kick with a long of 59 yards. When Coach Saban leads the Crimson Tide onto the field on Saturday night, it will be his 96th game as head coach of the team that is ranked #1 in the Associated Press poll. To put that into perspective, that's 75 more than the next active coach. Dabo Swinney is second with 21. Kickoff is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. on Saturday night inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. The game will be broadcast on the SEC Network. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV This Week coming up next.
Tide TV This Week is presented by Ford. For great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide, the University of Alabama, where legends are made.
There's a formula for success. It takes practice, persistence, and an unwavering drive. Together, our aspirations become reality. Every triumph has its origin story. Ours begin right here. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. The Alabama soccer team was back at home this past week as the Tide hosted Southern Miss and the 18th ranked Clemson Tigers.
First of those matches was last Thursday night against the Golden Eagles. Alabama picked up their first home win of the season with a 2-0 victory. It was Macy Clem scoring a goal in the opening 4 minutes of the match. Then Aislinn Stryzik added a goal in the 71st minute, and once again McKinley Crone with a shutout, her second of the season, to secure the 2-0 victory for the Crimson Tide over the Golden Eagles.
On Sunday, it was a rematch of the Tide's NCAA tournament win from last season as Alabama took on 18th ranked Clemson.
Now going into the matchup, Clemson was undefeated at 2-0-1, while Alabama was 2-1. Then when the teams met, the Crimson Tide dominated 18th ranked Clemson, outshooting the Tigers 20-10 and in shots on goal 7-3. Riley Mattingly Parker got the Tide on the scoreboard first with this header into the net in the 11th minute with the assist from Felicia Knox. The score remained 1-0 Alabama until the 72nd minute. Jonna Paul with a kick. She was able to put just enough on it to get past the Tigers goalie for the score, 2-0 Crimson Tide. Then in the 79th minute, it was Riley Mattingly Parker again, once again with a header. This would be her second of the match. Then McKinley Crone posted 3 saves in the match for her second shutout of the season as Alabama defeated number 18 Clemson 3-0.
And for her performance in helping the Tide win their 2 matches this week, Riley Mattingly Parker was honored as the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. Parker scored 2 goals in the Tide's big win over 18th ranked Clemson.
Congratulations to Riley and the Alabama soccer team on that honor. Alabama is on a 3-game road trip to Utah this week as the Tide takes on BYU, Utah, and Utah Valley.
The Rashinda Reed era got underway this past weekend at Foster Auditorium. The Alabama volleyball team opened their season hosting the Crimson Tide Invitational. We'll have the highlights of those matches coming up next.
Somebody stop me, I'm on a groove.
There you see the Crimson Tide ready to go.
Go.
Campbell down, and Alabama's Jacobs.
Taken by Layla Smith.
Down, and Alabama's back on top. Blocked by Jacobs. And blocked for
Alabama, they need a serve and drop.
Are you kidding me? Ray. And a point for Alabama on a long rally.
Move.
That was the scene in Foster Auditorium this past weekend as the Alabama volleyball team opened their season with the Crimson Tide Invitational. It was the first time since 2011 that the Tide opened with a season with its home tournament.
The Tide hosted McNeese, UTSA, and Southern Miss, and the Tide kicked off the Rashinda Reed era against McNeese on Friday morning.
Alabama won the opening matchup against McNeese in 4 sets. The Tide took set 1 25-19, and the Cowgirls won set 2 by that same score. Then the Tide takes sets 3 and 4 for the win. Micah Greinowitz led the way with 15 kills, with Brooke Slusser adding 32 assists.
In the nightcap of Friday's doubleheader, Alabama swept UTSA in 3 straight sets. The Tide opened the match with a pair of 2-point wins in the first 2 sets against the Roadrunners. Then the Tide closed out the match with a 4-1 run to complete the sweep with a 25-20 win in set 3. Aaliyah Wells led the Tide with 12 kills, while Brooke Slusser had another great match with 36 assists.
A great way to start the season for the Alabama volleyball team.
And also a great way to begin the Rashinda Reed era as well, Kinsey. Let's take an all-access look with Coach Reed as the Tide picked up the first 2 wins of her career. Here is the head coach at Alabama.
Definitely an exciting start, and gotta be excited to win.
Let's go! Battle! You guys did a nice job today. You guys stayed in and you battled all the way. You finished strong. You guys should be very freaking proud of yourselves today. Nice job.
Tide on 3, 1, 2, 3, go!
After those 2 big wins on Friday, Coach Reed and the Tide wrapped up the Crimson Tide Invitational on Saturday with a matchup against Southern Miss.
It was a really hard-fought match against the Golden Eagles, but the Tide prevailed with a 3-1 win in 4 sets. For the second time in 3 matches, Greinowitz led the team in kills, posting 12 in Saturday's win. Kendall Ray tallied her first double-double of the season and the 6th of her career with 11 kills and 15 digs. Victoria Schmier led the team with 18 digs. Also, Chase Campbell tied the team lead with 4 blocks, but also had a career-best 5 service aces.
In all, the Crimson Tide had 33 service aces and currently lead the SEC, averaging 3 a set. The 3-1 win improved the Tide's record to a perfect 3-0 to start the season.
Alabama will be in Houston, Texas this weekend as the Tide will take on Oregon State, Houston, and Central Arkansas at the Flo Hyman Collegiate Cup.
Stay with us. We'll have our plays and players of the week coming up next.
The lights of Tuscaloosa. What a finish we're in store for.
If you're looking to visit this stadium. They got it figured out here.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's electric. Here comes the Tide.
For Wells. That's down! Alabama finds a way in 4. That's gonna sail. Alabama opens the Rashinda Reed era with a victory.
Welcome back to TideTV This Week. Those were our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
This week we have 2, one from soccer and one from volleyball.
Well, we'll start with soccer. Riley Mattingly Parker was very instrumental in the Tide's upset win over 18th-ranked Clemson, scoring 2 goals, both headers. Parker leads the team with 3 goals this season, 2 game-winning goals, and also 6 points.
Freshman Micah Greinowitz led the team in kills in 2 of the 3 matches this past weekend in her Alabama debut at the Crimson Tide Invitational. Greinowitz had 15 kills in the season opener against McNeese and 12 on Sunday in the win over Southern Miss to push her season total to 38.
Congratulations to our Legacy of Hope Players of the Week. A big week for the Crimson Tide, Kinsey, and this week, of course, it's going to be even bigger as we see Alabama, the #1 ranked football team in the country, kicking off the season at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Absolutely, Roger. Soccer and volleyball started off this year with some great energy, and I can't wait to see how football follows it up. We'll talk about that season opener against Utah State and have a preview of Week 2's big matchup with Texas next week here on TideTV This Week.
Football season's here, Kinsey. I can't wait.
Roll Tide and roll football season, Roger. Can't wait to be in Bryant-Denny this weekend on Saturday.
Absolutely. We hope to see you in Bryant-Denny Stadium on this Saturday night and right back here next week for another edition of TideTV This Week. Roll Tide, everyone.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield.